you won't believe what happened over just a simple bottle of water." On a hot summer afternoon in a normally quiet and friendly neighborhood, a seemingly small incident exploded into a controversy that captured the attention of the entire community. A young boy stood by the sidewalk, a small cooler by his side, trying to earn a little extra money by selling bottled water to passers-by. It was the kind of innocent entrepreneurial spirit that many would admire, but not everyone saw it that way. Enter Hoa, a woman known in the neighborhood for her difficult attitude and entitled behavior, often labeled a Karen by frustrated locals. Upon spotting the boy selling water without what she believed to be the proper permits, Hoa became visibly upset. Instead of addressing the situation calmly, she took it to the extreme, picking up her phone and calling the police to report the child. What should have been a heartwarming story of youthful ambition quickly turned into a full-blown confrontation, setting the stage for an unexpected twist that no one could have predicted. Little did Hoa know, her call would not end with the boy being punished, but rather with herself facing serious consequences for making a false report. The sun hung heavy in the sky, casting a golden haze over the suburban streets. The afternoon air shimmered with heat, and the sidewalks buzzed with the easy rhythm of a summer day. Children rode their bikes along the curbs, neighbors tended their gardens, and the occasional bark of a dog echoed between rows of neatly kept houses. At the corner near the community park, a small boy stood behind a makeshift stand, a cooler packed with ice and bottled water at his feet. He wore a bright smile and called out to passers-by, offering cold drinks for $1 apiece. It was a common sight during the summer months, kids setting up lemonade stands or selling water to make a little spending money, their young ambition met with nods of approval or friendly encouragement from most adults. But not everyone saw it that way. From the window of her neatly trimmed, two-story house, Hoa watched with a growing sense of irritation. She was known in the neighborhood for her stern looks, her sharp complaints, and her tendency to involve herself in matters that most others would let pass. The sight of the boy, cheerfully waving to cars and chatting with strangers, rubbed her the wrong way. To Hoa, rules were rules. It didn't matter that he was just a kid. In her mind, he was running an unauthorized business on a public sidewalk, right under her nose. Her irritation soon boiled over into action. With a frown etched across her face, she marched down her front steps and strode purposefully toward the boy's stand. The boy, startled but polite, greeted her with a tentative smile. Hoa didn't return it. Instead, she launched into a harsh, clipped lecture about permits, business licenses, and public safety. She accused him of operating illegally, of being a nuisance to the neighborhood, and demanded he pack up and leave immediately. The boy, confused and on the verge of tears, tried to explain that he was only trying to earn money for a school trip. His mother, sitting on a nearby bench keeping a watchful eye on her son, quickly intervened. She approached Hoa calmly, hoping to defuse the situation, but Hoa was having none of it. Her voice grew louder, her gestures sharper, and within minutes, a small crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion. Undeterred by the stares of neighbors and the attempts at reasoning from the boy's mother, Hoa pulled out her phone. Speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear, she dialed 911 and reported what she described as a disturbance in the neighborhood. Her voice, dripping with exaggerated urgency, painted a picture of a chaotic, unsafe situation, a crowd gathering, a child behaving aggressively, concerns for public safety. None of it was true, but Hoa delivered her account with the confidence of someone certain that her complaints would be taken seriously. Within minutes, 2 police cars pulled up to the curb, lights flashing but sirens silent. Officers stepped out, taking quick stock of the scene, a boy with a cooler, a stand with neatly lined bottles of water, a small group of curious neighbors, and Hoa, standing rigid with arms crossed, a self-satisfied look on her face. The officers approached cautiously, speaking first with the boy's mother, who calmly explained the situation. The boy, wiping his eyes, described how he had set up the stand with his mother's help to raise money for an upcoming school event. He said he had not been bothering anyone, only selling water to those who approached him. Hoa interrupted repeatedly, her voice rising, insisting that the boy was blocking the sidewalk, that he had been shouting at cars, that she felt threatened by his behavior. The officers listened patiently, but their expressions grew increasingly skeptical. They asked Hoa for specifics. What exactly had the boy done to warrant a 911 call? Did she feel unsafe? Had he threatened her directly? Each time, her answers grew vaguer, less convincing. Nearby neighbors who had witnessed the entire encounter stepped forward to give their accounts, and none of them matched Hoa's story. Several testified that the boy had been polite and quiet, that it was Hoa who had escalated the situation without cause. The officers spoke privately for a few moments, confirming details with dispatch and reviewing the situation. It quickly became clear that no law had been broken by the boy or his mother. If anything, the only disturbance had been caused by Hoa herself. Under local ordinances, filing a false police report was a serious offense, and after a brief but firm conversation with Hoa, the officers informed her that she was under arrest for making a false report of an emergency. The color drained from Hoa's face as the reality of the situation set in. She stammered protests, claiming she had been just trying to protect the neighborhood, but it was too late. One officer read her rights as another gently placed her hands behind her back and secured them with handcuffs. The crowd that had gathered watched in stunned silence, then murmured with a mix of relief and disbelief. Some pulled out their phones, capturing the moment Hoa was led toward the waiting police car. Meanwhile, the boy's mother knelt beside her son, hugging him tightly and reassuring him that he had done nothing wrong. The officers apologized to the family for the inconvenience and assured them that they were free to continue selling water if they wished. In fact, several neighbors, moved by the boy's calmness and perseverance, lined up to buy bottles from him, turning what had begun as a painful experience into a small, heartwarming show of support. As the patrol car pulled away, carrying Hoa toward the station, the street slowly returned to its easy summer rhythm. The sun still beat down relentlessly, the dog still barked occasionally from shaded porches, and a young boy, now beaming with pride, sold cold bottles of water to a smiling line of customers who were happy to stand in the heat a little longer, just to prove that kindness and community mattered more than petty anger. Hoa stood rigidly on the sidewalk, her hands clenched into tight fists at her sides, trying desperately to maintain an air of indignation as the officers calmly questioned her. Her voice, once sharp and commanding, now wavered with a hint of desperation. She pointed repeatedly at the small boy and his mother, claiming that they had been disruptive, that they had created a public hazard, that she had simply been trying to protect the peace of the neighborhood. But as the officers asked for specifics, for clear examples of any wrongdoing, Hoa's answers became increasingly fragmented and defensive. Every time she tried to justify her actions, the officers countered with the calm testimony of witnesses who had seen everything unfold. Neighbors described how Hoa had been the one to initiate the confrontation, raising her voice and intimidating the child, while the boy himself had been nothing but polite and respectful. Video footage from a nearby security camera was produced, showing Hoa angrily gesticulating while the boy simply stood behind his small table, clutching a bottle of water in his hands. As the evidence mounted against her, Hoa's protests grew louder but less coherent. She accused the officers of bias, she insisted that the neighborhood had gone downhill, she even claimed that she felt unsafe simply by the boy's presence. But nothing she said could change what everyone had seen with their own eyes. The officers remained professional, but their patience visibly wore thin. They explained to her that filing a false police report was a serious offense, one that wasted valuable resources and unfairly targeted an innocent child. Hoa's face turned red, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to find some argument that would save her. She tried once more to shift the blame, claiming that the boy's mother had encouraged illegal activity, but it was too late. The weight of the facts was undeniable, and the officers had no choice but to take action. When they informed Hoa that she was being placed under arrest for making a false report, a gasp rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Hoa stiffened, looking around wildly as if expecting someone to come to her defense, but the neighbors who had once been her acquaintances now stood in silent disapproval. One officer gently but firmly took her by the arm, reading her rights as he placed the handcuffs around her wrists. Hoa tried to protest, but her words were drowned out by the unmistakable click of the cuffs locking into place. She was led to the police car, her step stiff and reluctant, her head bowed not in humility but in simmering resentment. As the patrol car pulled away, the tension that had gripped the street began to dissolve. The boy's mother knelt down and hugged her son tightly, whispering words of comfort and pride. Neighbors approached the boy, offering not just money for his bottled water but kind words and encouragement. Some bought 2 or 3 bottles at a time, not because they were thirsty but because they wanted to show the boy that they stood with him, that they valued fairness and community over pettiness and cruelty. A few even offered to help him set up a more permanent stand, suggesting ways he could expand his little business without fear of harassment. Word of the incident spread quickly. Within hours, videos taken by witnesses appeared on social media, showing Hoa berating the boy and being led away in handcuffs. The footage sparked outrage across the internet. Comment sections filled with messages of support for the boy and his family, while Hoa's behavior was roundly condemned as an example of the dangers of entitlement and misuse of authority. News outlets picked up the story, and soon it was being shared nationwide as a cautionary tale. People praised the officers for handling the situation professionally and holding Hoa accountable for her actions. More importantly, the story became a powerful lesson about the importance of compassion, respect, and standing up for what's right. Community leaders used the incident as an opportunity to talk about the broader issues of racial profiling, the misuse of emergency services, and the need for neighborhoods to support their young people rather than tear them down. The boy, initially shy and overwhelmed by the sudden attention, soon found himself at the center of a wave of positivity. He received letters of encouragement from strangers across the country, small donations to help with his school trip, and even offers of mentorship from local business owners who admired his entrepreneurial spirit. Through it all, he remained humble, grateful not only for the material support but for the sense of belonging and validation that came with it. What had started as a painful and confusing afternoon ended up strengthening the bonds within the community, reminding everyone that kindness and fairness could prevail even in the face of cruelty. The sidewalk where he had first set up his cooler became a symbol of resilience. Every weekend afterward, other children joined him in selling lemonade, cookies, or handmade crafts, turning the corner into a lively, cheerful gathering place where neighbors met, laughed, and supported one another. As for Hoa, the consequences of her actions followed her long after the patrol car disappeared down the street. She faced legal penalties for filing a false report, along with the lasting damage to her reputation both in the neighborhood and online. Attempts to justify her actions in public forums were met with little sympathy. The world had seen the truth, and no amount of excuses could undo the harm she had caused, or the powerful message her downfall had inadvertently reinforced. In the end, her attempt to shut down a boy's simple dream had only succeeded in inspiring a movement of support, compassion, and community pride that was far stronger than any single act of anger could ever hope to be.